You are up to bat. And we have media, so you'll signal for me and I'll put up the right. Okay, floor is yours.
Thank you. Hey everyone, my name is Karthi. Before I really get started, I want to first give a bit of background about myself. Last year, I served as a student representative on the Palo Alto School Board. So that meant that every other Tuesday from 6:30 to 8, 9, sometimes even 10, I would be sitting at the dais with the rest of the school board, listening to staff reports, community comments, and I had the opportunity to share my voice and my thoughts on issues that really mattered, and I was able to represent my peers. One of the most important things that experience taught me, and it gave me a really healthy respect for listening. I think that's what's been missing from this whole process of creating ethnic studies, an unwillingness to listen. So I want to thank you all for coming here and being willing to listen to us today. And I want to share with you a little bit about Palo Alto's experience. From the very beginning, our community had two main issues. We were given almost no clarity about the content of the course. And when concerns were raised based on what we had been given, we were told it was just a brainstorming document and it was unofficial. So why weren't we given official information? Here's one district official answering that question. If we can play clip one.
Sure.
And to the board, our teachers were in the process of creating the course over the past 2.5 years before they implemented the pilot in the fall. And so what was presented was what we had at the time in terms of creating the course. So it wasn't like, let's say, our English language arts adoption that you may have heard about, where we had actual curriculum that we were looking through. Parents were in that on that committee, looking at the curriculum, looking at those lessons. That wasn't what this was. Our teachers actually wrote the curriculum themselves, right? Using research.
Pause that quickly. Two things I want to point out for you all from that video. First of all, we had a pilot course, and presumably that course had a curriculum. But any time that we actually requested more information about it, to the point of filing PRA requests, we were told that the curriculum was still in development and didn't exist yet. And second, she tells us about our district's adoption of the ELA curriculum, where we had parents on a committee working with teachers to resolve their concerns and making sure that everyone was comfortable with its content. Yet in the very next breath, she tells us that the ethnic studies curriculum just wasn't that. My question is, why not? Why aren't we able to have a committee? Why aren't we able to listen to parents, to students, to community members who have very valid concerns about what we're being taught? And really, we haven't got an answer yet. And that's why it's so important that we listen. What we've seen with ethnic studies is just this chronic unwillingness to share information because they're worried that it'll be criticized. And it's not just sharing information with the community. Even the school board was told that despite the fact that there was a pilot course already, this brainstorming document was the only information to exist. Can we look at clip 2?
Understand, just to clarify, that there is no further document developed over the course of the year that would have been more finalized than this working document, brainstorming document, developed a year ago. And if that is true, am I to understand that as a board, we were asked to vote on this really important topic on the basis of a document that is still work in progress, brainstorming created a year ago?
Just a quick point.
Thank you. The answer to her question was yes. The board voted 3-2 to approve the course despite not having the curriculum, despite not showing the community the curriculum, and not allowing people to make educated questions. 3 weeks later, that curriculum was finalized and released to the public. So we have to believe one of two things. Either the curriculum was built in just 3 weeks, despite having nothing more recent than a year-old brainstorming exercise to present to approval for the board, or just maybe, they just chose not to give it to the community and give us that information until public comment was no longer a possibility. I want you to ask yourself, which one is more reasonable? Now, regardless of which possibility you believe, one thing is pretty clear. On the subject of ethnic studies, criticism has been largely unwelcome. Even just having the audacity to ask questions about it is met with anger instead of a willingness to listen. In private, ostracization is common, and even at a public forum like a board meeting, a school board meeting, we see this. We can play clip 3.
Okay. We need to keep, in order for us to be able to talk. So.
Are we allowed to correct some things
So
that
no,
you've
but
mentioned here?
I think.
Are we allowed to correct? Because there's a lot of stuff you said that's really
So what I will do,
amazingly
I have
wrong.
a lot of words. Yeah.
I mean, it's like,
yeah.
have you guys come to our classes? This is the first time I've met you guys. You've
yeah.
never come to our classrooms to talk about this stuff.
Okay.
Unbelievable.
So what I would like to do is to ask.
Your education degrees, wow, that's great.
Thank you.
I won't be able to run this.
I'm sorry, I wanted to get that last bit in there because she says I won't be able to run this meeting. That was a Brown Act covered public meeting, right? So anyway, take it away, Karthi, just go ahead.
Yeah. And in this really public meeting, it's a public setting where students are watching, teachers are watching, and the community is watching. We see teachers interrupt calls for order with anger at being questioned. And even when we don't see that anger, our concerns are downplayed, ignored, and invalidated. It's really regardless of whether you believe ethnic studies is a good or a bad thing. You have to ask, why are the people pushing ethnic studies unwilling to listen, unwilling to be criticized, and really just not being able to open their ears and understand why people are concerned? And here's an example of that invalidation, if we can watch clip 4.
Things happen, and someone doesn't always feel comfortable. I worry about the word safe as a person who has to worry about my husband driving and coming home, right, if he gets pulled over. So the word safety is something we have to be a little bit, we have to be aware of what that means. Now, being uncomfortable, absolutely. I feel uncomfortable sitting up here naming that I worry about my husband, but it's the truth. We can feel uncomfortable. That's part of growing and learning and being a human being, but also being part of this community. Our teachers will often feel uncomfortable when a student says something.
Thank you. So what we've seen here is shortly before this comment, parents, teachers, and one school board official themselves raised concerns that parts of the curriculum, especially around controversial issues, were making the community feel unsafe. Students felt unsafe being in the classroom when they were taught that they were the ones who were being oppressors, when they were taught that their privilege and their power made them fundamentally oppressors. And when we faced that question, we were told that what we were feeling was called discomfort, not a lack of safety. We were told that you're not allowed to feel unsafe in this situation because your struggle doesn't compare, because what you're experiencing right now isn't enough to qualify as unsafe. All you're feeling is discomfort. And I think that is the most damning question that we have on this. What we've seen is that teachers and officials aren't willing to face the questions. And I have really great teachers. I love almost every single teacher I have. And the question is that in terms of the process of being implemented, which way is it better? Is it better to have people being able to look at the curriculum before they make decisions, to be able to comment publicly and be able to hear our concerns so we can be comfortable or feel safe with this curriculum? Or is it better to shove it through? I think even if you think that ethnic studies is an amazing idea, it's pretty clear that this strategy of silence as opposed to listening has just led to more division. And I think in a lot of ways, this conversation about ethnic studies has devolved into ethnic tribalism, religious tribalism, and division. But regardless of your opinions on Israel, Palestine, oppression, or really any other controversial issue, I think as humans, we can all agree that listening to other perspectives is important. And that, I think, is the biggest failure of ethnic studies. Thank you.